we want to thank you for joining us and let you know that our aim as the Integrative Duo is to bring you different conversations and opinions from knowledgeable and amazing people across the globe. Some of our topics discussed and opinions expressed invite you to look at health and wellness through a different lens. It is not medical advice, and we encourage you to speak to your healthcare provider for any continuing concerns.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which way you look at it, we have a large section of the population that do not seem to know the answers to that simple question: what is long-term sustainable health?
Welcome to the Integrative Duo podcast. You're here with Kat and Beck. We're sisters with very unique paths, wanting to explore all things holistic living, self-development and consciousness with you.
We're joining forces to help support and inspire others to lessen the chemical load, eat more whole foods, become more conscious of their thoughts and beliefs, plus so much more.
Now we want to quickly chat with you about using medicinal mushrooms holistically. There is so much evidence now to show how medicinal mushrooms can be utilised, and they all have such a wide variety of benefits. But some basics are lion's mane and how that improves cognitive function, or reishi on relaxing the nervous system. When choosing to take a supplement though, it's so important to choose high quality, and that's why we love the brand Lifecycle. Lifecycle is based in Byron Bay, Australia, and is grown to be an evolutionary mushroom biotechnology company across the globe. They offer high-quality professional products including full-spectrum double liquid extracts. And if you'd love to explore the world of medicinal mushrooms, head over to their website at www.lifecycle.com. Cycle is spelled C-Y-K-E-L. And when you go to the checkout, enter the Integrative Duo 10 to get 10% off of your order. So all one word, Integrative Duo 10 to get 10% off. Now let's get to the podcast. So today on the podcast, we've got Pete Evans. He is an internationally renowned chef, entrepreneur, keynote speaker, author, television presenter, former My Kitchen Rules judge, and documentary producer. He has an insightful podcast called Evolve with Pete Evans, exploring nutritional and emotional well-being. His passion for food and a healthy lifestyle inspires individuals and families around the world. We're so excited to have you on the podcast today, Pete.
Hey, thanks for having us. How are you?
We're good, thank you. Like Beck said, so excited to have you on. But we really would like to know how it all started for you and your journey doing the amazing work you do today.
Yeah, that's a big question. A series of choices, I would say. Being born 49 years ago, and just an accumulation of choices that has led us to here. From parents' decision to have a child, or whether that was planned or not, who knows? And then the continuation of that. It's like everybody's story. How they got to where they are right now is just an accumulation of choices. That's pretty much it. And then following your intuition as to what resonates with you, and what you're attracted to, and what you're not attracted to, which creates the choices in which we make. And a lot of those choices are based on how do we want to live, how do we want to express ourselves, what do we want to learn, what do we want to teach. And that's how I got to where I am now, and it's a continuation still. I'm forever the student, and occasionally a teacher, if I'm asked to be in that role, so to speak. So
that's right. Choices lead us to where we are today. Obviously, you've been a chef for many years, but what started your passion for the health and wellness space?
Like everybody, it's to understand more, and so you have some questions about who we are. That's a good question. Who am I? We start with that one, and from that, simple question, a lot of answers or more questions arise, which takes you on the journey of self-discovery and remembrance of who we are. So that can come in the form such as books, such as documentaries, such as articles, such as wisdom from elders, looking at other cultures and seeing how they live. And I guess, like everything as human beings, we take what resonates with us and accumulate that into our experience, and we trial and error to see which works for us. You know, a lot of people get a lot of life experience through their choices, once again, you know, whether it be an intuition to travel, an intuition to study certain topics or subjects or philosophies that resonate with you, and being able to sit down and actually work out what it is that you want to experience in this life. What is those deep questions? And from that, from asking those questions, then you start the adventure, so to speak, to gain experience, to gain knowledge, to gain wisdom. And it is trial and error. You know, you try something, you experience it, you see how that feels. For instance, you asked about health. So we, as human beings, we have access to limitless information. You know, there's a lot of information out there around health, and we can take dietary information as a simple version of this. And there are so many different dietary principles and philosophies out there. Some people would believe in what they're taught at university if they study diet and nutrition. And then they teach that to either their patients or their clients, and they implement that in their lives. And for some, that seems to resonate with them. And for others that have taken on that advice from either a nutritionist, a dietitian, a doctor, or somebody that has studied this, they can then implement that knowledge that that person has shared and see if it works for them. You know, if I listen to this person and I follow their philosophy, do I get healthier, or do I remain the same, or do I get sicker? You know, that's the perfect way to see what works for you. Other people have studied ancient traditions, looked at human beings across our human evolution and said, okay, so what wisdom is there to learn from ancient cultures? Is there anything that resonates with me from how our ancestors have gotten through some difficult times in the past? And there's a wealth of information there, and some people will look at that and go, okay, that makes a lot of sense, or it makes no sense at all. You know, let's try that. What did those people eat? How did they live? Can I emulate that or take the best of that into where I am currently in my life? You know, other people follow new philosophies, such as the dietitian's philosophy or nutritionist philosophy, as well as other dietary philosophies such as veganism. You know, veganism or vegetarianism never really was a dietary principle that there's a group of people out there that are willing to do that experiment, not to eat animal products. What will happen to my health? What will happen to my mental clarity? What will happen to my spiritual being? So all of this is, I guess, through trial and experience, and then working out what works for you. And for me, I've a lot of these philosophies in my time, and most of it comes from ancestral wisdom. But each and every person that's alive on the planet gets to choose what they like. So that's health on a dietary philosophy. Alternatively, we can talk about spiritual health. Same thing. There's a lot of New Age people out there talking about how to connect and expand our consciousness and to understand why we're here. Now, many people that are curious about this can study religion religious texts, religious ideology or belief systems, as well as shamanic, as well as, again, ancient cultures. What did they believe in? What were the beliefs from a spiritual level? And we're witnessing it play out right now in regards to the state of affairs in the world. And we can look back over the last however many thousands of years and look at why wars were started. Were they started under the name of God or the name of religion? Were they started to acquire more land, more power, more control of resources? So we have at our disposal, so to speak, we have a wealth of information from human endeavors over our course of human history where we can look at this and go, okay, well, did that work out? Did that really, if we're talking about spiritual health, how has that helped us along this path of human evolution? And then there's other mental health, emotional health. How does that work out? Who are we studying to get that information? Who seems to have beautiful grounding and long-term sustainable mental and emotional health? Who are these people? What were their philosophies? How did they practice their human experience? What did they try? What did they discard? What did they celebrate? So when we're thinking about these questions of, how do we be healthy? It's an exploration through history, and then taking what resonates with us and then experimenting on ourselves. What we're witnessing right now is the largest human experiment as far as medical intervention has ever happened on the global scale on the human species. This will be interesting to look back on in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, hundreds of years, and go, did that work out? Did that actually create better health for the population, or was it a recipe for disaster? Who knows? But we're going through it. Many people have chosen to adopt into that system to see what it's like, and others have chosen not to adopt into that system. And we've got great a great experiment that's happening on the human population that time will tell what is true and what isn't. So yeah, it's a fascinating time to be alive, to witness this, and then for everybody to make a choice. What are you going to do? Are you going to adopt that philosophy, or are you going to observe it without adopting it and see what happens? We're all just human experiments, and we get to choose, which is a great thing, on which way we would like to go. Each and every one of us gets to choose what we put inside of our bodies, whether it be food, whether it be medicine, whether it be the information that we're listening to or watching, whether it's through mainstream news, alternative news, no news whatsoever. If you choose not to listen to anything, and perhaps you're studying, the power of sound or the power of vibration, your experience could be very different from your neighbor who is getting their information through certain talking heads, through mainstream media, and that's a beautiful thing to witness as well. So, so yeah, hopefully that answers your question about health.
It definitely did. I could listen to you for ages because you've just got such a warm energy about you, and you articulate everything so well. I wanted to say, you've got so many amazing nutritional, you've got amazing books, you've got amazing documentaries, and obviously nutrition plays a big part in health. But when I look at you, I see someone who's leading from the heart energetically. And when I look at your eyes and all the photos I've ever seen of you, you look so vibrant. And I just want to know, is that how you see yourself? You leading your life through this heart space? And what would you contribute to being so vital and being grounded and in alignment with that?
Well, thank you so much for the kind words. I often think about this, and it comes down to your intention without having an expectation. So if your intention, which, I'll share mine is to live as long as I can, in this human form without an expectation that it will last for a long time, if that makes sense. So my intention is to do what I can with my resources to be able to not only be a part of this human experience, but also to observe it and to manifest at the same time how I would like to live throughout this period of time. And one of my beliefs is that aging or mental or health decline, physical and mental decline, is only a belief that many people have adopted. You know, you look at mainstream media, you look at some of the people out there in the population who believe that once you hit 30, once you hit 40, once you hit 50, it's a downhill slope as far as health goes. And, you know, that's just an opinion, that's just a belief. And that may be cultivated from watching their parents or listening to their parents' belief or their grandparents or witnessing what's happening in the population. You know, if we actually had a look at the population in the Western world now, we could definitely come to the conclusion that the human species is becoming weaker and sicker, both in mind, spirit, and body. Now, why is that happening? When there are certain people that don't fit into that belief system, that don't demonstrate that. There's certain people out there that are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s that, and even in their hundreds, that have wonderful mental clarity, that are still creating works of art in their own right. Works of art can just be human expression. It doesn't need to be a picture on the wall or a painting. Works of art can be just expressing themselves unapologetically in their own right. So when we need to be careful that we don't just believe what the many are doing, because that could be a very slippery slope. You know, if I walked out and went to an airport or a shopping center or the city of a main Western town or civilization, you could say, and I looked around, I'd be like, whoa, there's a lot of sick looking people out there. There's a lot of people without the spark in their eyes or the vitality that you're talking about. Now, the question, you could come to the conclusion that it's inevitable for the human species to go through this. Or you could ask the question, what have they chosen as their belief systems, and what choices have they chosen for that to happen to them, for that to be their human expression? Whereas you could study other people that do not fit into that ideology, that actually, as I said, have vibrancy in their 80s, their 90s, their 100s, their 70s. I did a wonderful interview this week with a woman that was 74. That was so sharp. She was so sharp, so full of power, so full of vitality, because she's doing what she loves. And, you know, they're the people that I like to interact with. They're the people I like to look for guidance from, the ones that are expressing a beautiful form of the human being as a human being. So yeah, it's a really interesting time and space where, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on which way you look at it, we have a large section of the population that do not seem to know the answers to that simple question: what is long-term sustainable health? Perhaps they're not even asking that question, which would probably be my summation or my observation or perception of why this is happening. Because people are not asking the right questions of themselves. Because if you ask the question, how can I live a long, healthy, sustainable life? I'm sure the answers would come to them and they would express that. So we could have a very different culture. But again, everybody has free will to experience what they wish to experience. And for some, maybe this is what they've come to experience. They've come to experience to be sick, to be reliant on pharmaceuticals, to give their power away to government or institutions. and to hand over their power. Maybe that's part of their human experience for this journey. And that may be a really beautiful thing for other people to witness and go, you know what, that's not the path I choose to go on in this experience. I choose something else. I may be alone in that exploration. I might stand out from the crowd in this. Am I willing to? What am I willing to experience on this journey of life? Do I want to fit in to what I would consider a system that's corrupt or corrupted or crumbling? Or am I willing to experience all that life has to offer with full vibrancy? So it's an interesting time to be alive. I'll say it again. I love it.
We agree with that. Very interesting time to be alive.
I think you've touched Kat. She's just getting a couple of tears, and she's not a crier. So
because it's true, and
it is true.
we can relate to what you're saying, and I think that's just hit a string in the heart.
Yeah. It is a crazy time at the moment, and it's an interesting time to be alive. I think I say that every day at the moment. It's so interesting being alive right now. I want to talk about spiritual well-being for a minute, because I went through a really intense kind of spiritual awakening when I was 19. It's quite drastic. It was like a light switch turned on after some trauma. But when I look at other people, some people go through something quite intense. Some people have like a gradual awakening to their spiritual sort of self. With you, did you go through anything in your life that really opened you up from within, or was it like a gradual progression?
Yeah, interesting question. I haven't really thought about it too much. Again, it's just day by day, or hour by hour, or minute by minute. And you know, I want to be very careful about using the words like spiritual awakening, because even in that there can be misunderstanding, that it's something that we are wanting to achieve. We're already spiritually awake. All of us that have been born into a human form, we're already awake. So there's no journey to wake up to that, because we're always going to be human beings, and to think that, my understanding is if the pursuit of spiritual awakening is your goal, then what part does the human play in that experience? I honestly believe we're spiritual beings, and what we need to remember is who we are as human beings and as spiritual beings at the same time. You can't have one without the other. That's just my perception. And there's certain methodologies or practices in which we can totally disconnect from our humanness, so to speak, where we experience non-duality, where we experience ourselves as source consciousness. And once you've had that experience, if that's part of your journey, I mean, you will get there on your deathbed. But for those that have chosen to experience that before that time, that you can't exist in that experience permanently while you have a human body. So what is the purpose of then reaching non-duality before the end of your life? It's to remember how important it is to be human. And that might not make a lot of sense if you haven't had that experience, and that's okay. But to experience non-duality is a gift, to remember that you're a human being and that this is a gift. The ability to be able to taste, to be able to touch, to be able to smell, to be able to manifest and create, to be able to have an idea or a concept and then turn that into reality, or a dream and turn that into reality. That's our supernatural gifts that we have. That's what being human is. So we already have everything that we need. And some of these modalities just give us a little bit of a remembrance or a reminder that we are spiritual beings. So it's a tricky one to be able to put into words, because there's no language that really can convey the experience of source consciousness once you've experienced it, which there lies in the dilemma. So the searching or the seeking of spiritual enlightenment is nearly a yeah, I don't even know how to put into words, but it can be a trap. It can be a trap for some, and that's all I'll say is, yeah, be careful what you wish for on these journeys, and be careful not to disconnect yourself too much from the gift that is being human. You know, that's what we're here to experience. And you know, spiritual exploration or consciousness expansion is available to us at all times, and it's a beautiful to experience that. And at the same time, it's equally as beautiful to go through all the trauma, as you said, all the pain, all the suffering of being human at the same time, because therein lies the medicine. We are the medicine. We have everything that we need inside of us at all times. There's no seeking externally that we need to do, because it's all inside. So yeah, all I'd say is enjoy the adventure, whatever adventure you're on, in that spiritual seeking or spiritual awakening, as many would say it. I mean, we are experiencing what people would call a great awakening. And the great awakening to me is just a remembrance of who we are, that we are powerful, that we are magical, that we have the ability to turn thoughts into reality. And that therein lies our greatest strength. We don't need spirit as such to be able to do that, because it's already, we don't need to call on it because it's already in us. And there's the sort of the paradox of it, or the cosmic joke about it. You know, and all I'd say is be very, very careful with certain spiritual leaders that are out there that have put themselves out on the plane, you know, as we've witnessed over the last few years. You know, people that have been non-judgmental in their spiritual approach have shown their true colors in many aspects over the last couple of years, in such surprising ways. But when you actually think about it, it's like, okay, of course.
Yeah, I'm listening to that, and I remember a couple of years into sort of my journey, like I agree the spiritual awakening sort of sentence is quite a big topic, kind of heavy loaded. But I remember being guided to being in this human experience, like being told and intuitively going, okay, just be human. You've got to live this human life instead of always trying to be in this deep state, in this meditative state. So I totally agree and get what you're saying. I'm trying to be as human as possible and live out this experience. What did you want to ask?
Oh, yeah. I think you've touched on it quite a bit, but like you said, many people at the moment are living in a fearful state with what's going on in the world. And we know that chronic stress can be detrimental to our health. Having been in the spotlight for many years, are there any tips that you could share with us and our listeners about resilience and reducing stress?
Yeah, I have a sense of humor. Have a sense of humor. You have to. I mean, what's going on in the world? I mean, it's I often say it's a fucking circus. And really, the clowns are running the circus. As I said, so many of our systems that we've created have been based off fear and greed, or believing we have lack of resources, lack of money, lack of whatever it may be, you know, and it's no mistake that we find ourselves in 2022 witnessing all of these systems being exposed, whether it be the financial, the educational, the agricultural, the medical, the pharmaceutical, the government, and the list goes on and on and on, that they're doubling down on the ridiculousness and the insane choices that they're making. And what we're witnessing is people being able to see that the clowns are running the circus in all of these aspects, that it's based off, it's a very, very shaky foundation that many of these systems have been built upon, whether it be the financial, the educational, the government, the medical, the pharmaceutical, the media. You know, they're all being seen for what they are. And they all have a choice. I mean, it's not like it's a foregone conclusion that they're all going to topple and collapse in our lifetime. They have a choice. Everybody has a choice. And that's what makes this such an interesting time, because just when you think it can't get any more bizarre, it does, because the systems and the people that are involved in them are making choices that are perpetuating the clown show. And all you need to do is speak to people over the last couple of years, and people are becoming pretty clued on to the finance sector, or the central banking system, or the World Economic Forum, and the corruption in the government systems. I mean, these aren't conspiracy theories anymore. We're witnessing them play out. I mean, we're witnessing them here in Australia, we're witnessing them in New Zealand, America, all over the place. We're witnessing that corruption exists in the highest levels of government. Corruption exists in the highest levels of the media. Corruption exists in the highest levels of government institutions. Corruption exists in the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry, the multinational food industry, the agricultural industry. We're witnessing that. There's no debate anymore, because the evidence is there. Pharmaceutical companies have been charged in the past for lying to the public and coercing scientific information through universities and through certain studies. I mean, again, it's a non-debatable situation, because people have gone to jail, people have been paid fines, corrupt government officials have been kicked out of office, or they continue to be in office by forcing emergencies on the population. I mean, it is no longer impossible to see this. It is no longer. The financial collapses that we've witnessed and what's coming, the cyber attacks that have been complete hoaxes, and what is coming, you know, and more of this will come, because they'll double down and triple down, because they feel like that's the path they have to take. But at the same time, what happens is more evidence comes out for more people to see it, so they can say, okay, I can continue believing in these systems. You know, we'll take pharmaceutical and medical institutions as an example. We know people that get off their pharmaceutical medication by changing their diet or changing their belief systems about who they are. It's possible. It's possible. We see people opting out of financial systems and adopting Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, for instance. There's a system there. There's a solution there that is running parallel to the mainstream. When will that flip so that becomes mainstream, and that becomes just like, whoa, you know? And we've witnessed this through human history. So again, it's happening. It's happening. So a sense of humor is great, because you need to laugh at what's playing out. Empowerment is key. How do you empower yourself? And this is what I've been saying for many, many years. You empower yourself by eating good food, so that your mental state is grounded and mental clarity is sharp and clear and on point. You practice modalities that are in tune with nature, like our ancestors done. You go to bed early, you wake up early. You understand the circadian rhythm of nature, of the sun, of the moon, of the stars. You tap into that. It's very, very simple. You get adequate sun exposure, daylight exposure, away from looking at a screen all day or a screen all night. You know, really simple stuff. You understand how our breath works. We have one tool at our disposal, is how do we regulate our breath? We can do this on a daily basis. It's one thing that we can do. I mean, if we don't think about it, it does it automatically. but you might like to witness how you breathe throughout the day. Is it shallow breathing? Is it proper diaphragm breathing? Are you taking big inhalations and nice big exhalations, nice and slow? Or are you a rapid mouth breather? How do you sleep overnight? Are you a mouth breather or a nose breather? We have modalities out there which teach us how to reduce stress in our life. That can be in the form of a daily practice. It can be a tea ceremony that we perform each and every day, where we make ourselves a beautiful cup of herbal tea or whatever it may be. It can be a cup of coffee. It can be a beautiful meal in which we give gratitude for. It could be cooking that meal and offering yourself self-nourishment and self-love. These daily practices could be meditation. They could be yoga. It could be going for a surf. It could be whatever brings you joy and passion. And if you don't know what that is, remember when you were a child, what brought you joy and passion? Was it playing outside in the rain with your friends? Was it dancing? Was it singing? Was it playing a musical instrument? Was it listening to music? What is it that brings you joy? Whatever it is, do more of that. Do more of that. It's a pretty fucking simple solution. It's a pretty simple formula. Do the things that bring you joy, regardless of whether or not of whether anybody else needs to be involved in your passions. If other people are involved, so be it. But if you can do something that really resonates with you, regardless of if anybody else is involved in that, do it. It could be taking a beautiful bath of a night time with a candle. It could be reading a book that you've always wanted to do, setting aside 20 minutes a day to read a novel where you go into fantasy land, or it could be a book where you're learning more about how to meditate, learning more about breath work, learning more about ancient rituals and ceremonies, learning more about how to expand your consciousness in a way that resonates with you. So all of these things, and most of them are free. Having an interaction with an animal, whether you have a pet. If you don't have a pet, then maybe go down to somewhere where you can sit and observe a farm with cattle, with horses. Sit in the park, watch the birds, go into nature, go for a hike, go to the beach, watch the seagulls, watch the waves, look at the horizon. You know, looking at the horizon, changing your perception into have as long a perception or view as you can, instead of looking at a screen and focusing all day on something here or here. You know, think about how beautiful it is to look at a sunrise or a sunset or the horizon. Now, what that does is gives you the ability to take in more information, to look into the future, to be in the present moment. So all of these things that we have, again, we look at ancient wisdom. They knew all of this. You know, some people like to pray. Some people like to have a blessing. Some people like to go to church, whatever it may be, whatever your church is. You know, mine's nature. It's not a building. Maybe it's connection to a loved one. Maybe it's forgiving a loved one. Maybe it's forgiving yourself. Maybe it's reconnecting or doing something out of the ordinary. You know, my wife, Nick, did ecstatic dance last year, or erotic dance, sensual dance. You know, that was one of her journeys that she wanted to experience. And she loved that, doing it with not only for herself, but with a group of people. I'm watching Kelly Brogan, who's a dear friend of ours, go through the same thing now. She just started pole dancing. You know, it's these things to maybe put you out of your comfort zone, so to speak, and experience new things that may feel a little uncomfortable, but you do it because you want to grow, you want to experience. Can I be a sensual person? Can I be an erotic person? What would that mean if I showed up with all my sexuality and expressed that instead of hiding it from the world? What would that feel like? What would that allow me to express? What would that allow me to bring into my life? You know, sex is a huge one for people to understand what the limitations are, what their beliefs are, what have they inherited from their parents' belief or their grandparents' belief or their religious beliefs or cultural beliefs. All of these sort of stuff is worth asking the question, who am I? What am I here to experience? So how do you deal with all the craziness? Is you become empowered with knowledge through experience, which gives you wisdom, which gives you understanding, which gives you a really beautiful foundation in which to view the world, so that you can either get caught up and swept away in it with fear. And I mean, this is an interesting time to be alive, but every freaking day of my life has been an interesting time to be alive, and it will continue to be that way. It's not like we're going to get a point where everything's like, there's no nonsense in the world. Of course, there's always going to be nonsense and the circus playing out, because individuals are playing out their trauma. They're playing out and trying to deal with their fears, their insecurities, their expression of all of these. Somebody that feels powerless and not heard or not seen or not important is going to do everything in their power to show the world that they are important, that they have a voice, that they should be seen, and that other people should listen to them because they weren't listened to as a child. We're seeing that. I mean, I saw a great meme the other day about, tyrants and political figures. They seem to be spoiled children. They're just trying to soothe their insecurities, but they do not know some of the modalities that we've spoken about. So what's left? I know I'll get myself into a power where people will have to listen to me. Well, I will dictate what people should do. It's a classic scenario. I mean, you're watching it play out. And for the people that haven't done the inner work on themselves, and I don't like to use that word work, but that haven't discovered this for themselves and haven't resolved their mother and father issues, they're going to look to those people as parental figures for them. Oh, yes, please, can you guide us? Because we don't know what to do in this world. We don't know how to look after ourselves. We need a mother and daddy figure to be able to tell us what to do and to keep us in line, and to, that's what we're witnessing here. A lot of people that are confused and do not have the answers, so they look externally for somebody to look after them. This is what's happening. And more and more people are waking up to this, so to speak, and they're seeing it. That's why a lot of these leaders are either backpedaling once they impose these things, or they're doubling down. And yeah, it's going to be interesting watching what happens to these people. Because we've witnessed over the years, when this has happened in the past, these people end up going to jail that have imposed their will on the people. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, and I wish no will or evil to happen to anybody. Nature will just take care of itself. It will correct what is happening. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I mean, there's great opportunities here at the same time. There's great opportunities for people that to stand up, to become leaders. And not that we need leaders per se, but while there still is people wishing to have leaders, this is a great opportunity for leaders to emerge for those particular people, and show a different way, perhaps. Whether it'll happen or not, we'll see.
We're watching you and listening to you, and you're so calm in everything that you've just said. And they're huge topics that you've just discussed, and huge events that are unfolding in this present time. And you're so calm. And I thank you for sharing the strategies that people could, I'm going to use the word strategies, but looking at different modalities and looking at nutrition and ways that we can work on ourselves. I know you said you don't like the word work, but we can look into ourselves and go, okay, what can we do and how do we empower ourselves? And I love that, because it doesn't cost a lot of money. It's something that we can do in our own time, and no one can take it away from us. And I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's really helpful.
Because we had to ground ourselves through all of the circus mess. Everyone's just, I think a lot of people at the moment are so fearful, like we're talking about before. So trying to find your feet and humor, and
but you don't look fearful. You look calm.
You look so calm.
Let's just watch and observe, and work on ourselves. Oh, not work on ourselves, but be present. And I love that. That's really,
It's good advice
yeah,
for everyone right now.
thank you. I've noticed on your Evolve platform, you have so many documentaries and so many podcasts and so many different resources for people who are, you know, interested in taking care of themselves and finding out more about the way of the world, I suppose. Could you maybe explain a little bit about what else is on the Evolve platform and what else you offer to help people, I suppose, in the health and wellness space?
Yeah, and a few people wanted to know a bit about your retreats coming up. Are you able to explain a bit about what you're doing in that space?
Yeah, for sure. So the Evolve Network came out through, again, finding a solution to the censorship that's happening around the world online. Again, you can run away and think that there's no path forward, so to speak, but my intention is always to find a path forward. And part of what I like to do is, as I said before, I like to be the student. I love to interview people. And part of, I guess, my strengths is being able to share that information with a wide audience. And I've fallen in love with that role that I have, is being the student and asking people the questions I like to ask, and in a way that I like to do it. I love to do it, actually. I've learned over the years that the best way for me to interview people is never with, I go in there knowing nothing pretty much, and I never have anything written down. I just have a chat and let the space and let the connection reveal itself while we're doing an interview, which it took me a while to cultivate that and to understand that I didn't need to be fearful of me as a bad interviewer. You know, I was like, because I used to be worried about that type of thing, and then I thought, what's the point? You know, it's just two human beings having a chat. Because I used to be a little bit self-conscious about interviewing people that were doctors or scientists or researchers or politicians or this, that, and the other, you know, that had studied something for all their life, you know, and I used to feel like I had to meet them on that intelligence level. And then I was like, well, what are you thinking? If you're going to keep doing this, you cannot be an expert on everything that you're interviewing these people on. They've worked their life to understand what they're about to share with you. You know, can you frame it in a way that you can go into an interview and be humble and don't really give a fuck if you know anything about it or not, or them? Can you just meet another human being and have a conversation? And that has worked really well, I believe, for me and for the guests that I've interviewed, because most often afterwards they go, that was a different interview than what I've done in the past. And that's always my intention. Can I gain some information from this person that perhaps they haven't shared before? So I don't like the idea of regurgitation for the sake of regurgitation. So why would I interview someone when I can just share the interview that they've just done with somebody else? It's pointless. That would be egotistical. Can my guest, can I allow them, or can I create a space where they can open up in a way that perhaps they haven't opened up before? That's always my intention when I go in there with a guest. And same thing when I'm being interviewed. You know, some people like to send me questions. I go, no, please don't send me any questions, because I don't even want to think about my answer until we're in the moment, because each and every interview that I do is completely different. So the purpose behind the Evolve Network was to create a space in which I could invite guests to express themselves perhaps in a different way than they have previously. Whether they are the doctors, the farmers, the scientists, the professors, the teachers, the people that have recovered from incurable illnesses, and the list goes on and on, shamans. Yeah, I love it. Sex educators. Nothing is off the table, so to speak, which I love too, because it's exciting for me. It's not just pigeonholed into one area. So it gives me variety. It gives me the ability to take in a wealth of information. And again, when I'm interviewing people, I'm the student. And I've often said that if nobody ever watches these interviews, it doesn't matter to me. Because I have a lot of people, when I ask them to be on the program, they'll say, "Well, what's your audience reach?" And I say, "I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. It's irrelevant." Because if I had to think about how many people are going to watch this, and that becomes my modus operandi, so to speak, then I'm not doing it for the right reason. My belief instead is the people that will resonate this will find it when it's appropriate to them. That could be one person. It could be 10 people. It could be 100 people. I don't know. So I don't get caught up in those types of things. So again, the Evolve is something that emerged and was created from an idea or a concept to be able to have a one-stop shop, so to speak, for me to express myself, and for other people that I'm interested in to also have a platform in which they can express themselves in an uncensored way. So as you said, we've got our podcasts and vodcasts. I think we have 350, 400 of them. We have 20 documentaries. We've got another 5 being put on the platform in the coming month or two. We have 1,000 recipes plus that are there for people to utilize into their home space. We have meal plans for paleo, keto, budget-friendly, carnivore, plant-based. They're 4-week meal plans for people to explore, to experiment on themselves. How do they feel after they eat this way? We also have guided meditations, we have frequency meditations, we have breath work tutorials, we have, let me just think here, what else we have? We have other people's platforms on there and interviews. So it's always been a dream to be able to put all of that, and our Paleo TV series are on there too, which is 16 half-hour episodes. So the dream has always been a one-stop shop. So if people are interested in learning more from myself and others, then they can go there. It's free will. This is the interesting thing about over the last 10 or so years where we've been putting out information. None of it has been forced upon anybody. So it's everybody's free will whether they take the information and do with it what they wish, you know. And again, I have no expectation. It's there. You can take it on board. You can experience what that's like, or you can leave it and scroll past. We have created it to be an affordable one-stop shop for people. It's $100 Australian per year, or $10 a month, give or take, which I feel is for $100, you know, there's information in there that definitely can change your life. 100%, you know, and
100% we agree with that. Definitely, we will speak to that. There's so much content, valuable content in there for definitely that price. It's
very affordable.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've found is people do, if they want to change their life, for some reason, there's this thing about exchange, you know, and we live in a world currently that is based around currency and trade of resources. So, because I did used to put stuff out there for free, it was interesting. The uptake wasn't as good as when you charged for it. So there's something in that I respected, but at the same time try to keep as low cost price as possible, because people feel like they need to pay for something for it to have value to themselves. And it was an interesting one for me to walk along on that path, because, you know, all the information is available for free out there. It's not like I've got some secret that we've got and nobody else has, because we have all the answers anyway. But for some people, they feel like they need to purchase something for it to be of value. So that's there. And then your second question about the Evolve Sanctuary is, my wife and I had the the great fortune of being able to open up a wellness retreat in a beautiful part of the world, which is far north New South Wales. We're about an hour's drive from Coolangatta Airport and an hour's drive from Byron Bay to inland, pretty much from those two beautiful towns. And we're in the rainforest here. That's where I'm doing the podcast from today, which is why the reception isn't great. We don't have very good reception, which is part of the beauty of being up here. We don't have phone reception. The internet is quite weak, and it's perfect. It's perfect. And we have 7 cabins. We run 4 different types of retreats. We run a wellness retreat, which goes for a weekend. We run cooking retreats, which also go for weekends. We run yoga retreats, which go for weekends. And we run fasting retreats once a year or maybe twice a year, and they go for anywhere from 3 to 5 days. So we've been running these retreats. We opened in April, May last year. So where are we now? Late February. So it's that 9 months, or give or take 10 months. And we love it. We love it. We host a maximum of 8 people per retreat. We don't have any staff, which is beautiful. And we just have friends that come in and help us facilitate, that are masters in their own disciplines and their own creative expression. So that's a joy for us. So yeah, we're very blessed and very grateful for people that come here to experience a weekend or more with us. And yeah, they get to experience this beautiful part of the world. It's in the rainforest. So what we say to our guests is, you know, we add a little garnish, but just being on this land, being able to swim in the creek or be in the vicinity of so many trees and such power from Wollumbin, which is also known as Mount Warning, to be able to just immerse yourself in nature, away from EMFs, away from the circus of the world, and get to listen to the insects, which you might be able to hear right now. They're making a beautiful noise out there. To be able to listen to the birds and watch the birds, whether it be the black cockatoos or the kookaburras or whatever, the crows that are flying around. To be able to, to see the green tree frogs that have just jumped onto the glass of our sauna, which is absolutely beautiful. And then we have certain things that we offer, which is beautiful food that my wife and I cook around the table and have wonderful conversation. We light a fire. We have a ice bath that's set at 5 degrees Celsius for our guests to explore for a few minutes whenever they choose to. We have an infrared sauna, which gets up to 70 degrees Celsius for them to explore. We also have a beautiful mineral spa, mineral swimming pool. We have a freshwater creek, as I mentioned, that runs from the mountain. And we have a float tank that is on for our guests, which has a couple of 100 kilograms of magnesium in it. And yeah, then we have the different modalities. My wife, Nick, serves a beautiful tea ceremony for our guests, which is an hour of silent meditation. Nick and I conduct breath work as well. And then we bring in different facilitators that can do body work or yoga and the like. So yeah, we're very, 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 very grateful that we get to offer this to people that choose to experience it. And yeah, we love it. We love it.
That sounds amazing.
I sound relaxed just listening to you describe the landscape. I'm going, oh, this is quite nice.
that can calm us.
Yeah.
That's our therapy, just listening to you talk about it. We're conscious of the time, and everything that you've spoken about today, we're going to put in our show notes, and so people can go check out the Evolve Network TV and everything you do. But is there anything you want to share with us that we haven't yet covered?
I think we've covered quite a big deal. And again, it's there's I wouldn't shy away from the big questions. The big questions are there to be asked, and they're there to be answered. And if you don't know where to start, you might just like to listen to a podcast. I do have free podcasts that are available on Apple iTunes. They haven't kicked me off that one yet. So you can listen to some of those podcasts if you choose to. And you could start at number 1 Number one is with a dear friend of ours, Dr. Sarah Ballantyne, that talks about autoimmune disease. Right? Or you can scroll through and listen to people like Dr. Bruce Lipton, who talks about the biology of belief. You can listen to people like David Avocado Wolf, who is always an interesting one to see how far out things may be, you know, and his perception of things. You can listen to ones that I've done of people like Dave from the X22 report, or Patel Patriot, if you want to have a deep dive into what's going on in the geopolitical world of Trump and Biden and American politics and global politics. I'm fascinated by that because it does have a ripple effect out to pretty much every single person in the world. And if you're not empowered, or if you don't have information, then it might just seem like despair after despair, after tragedy after tragedy. But, you know, there could be some information that may resonate with you in some of the interviews that we've conducted. And, you know, if you want to know more about spiritual well-being, we've interviewed different shamans and different people that conduct different types of ceremonies, you know, for the spiritual work as per se, or understanding. So there's something for everybody in there. I've interviewed vegans, I've interviewed carnivores people, I've interviewed dietitians, I've interviewed nutritionists, I've interviewed paleos, I've interviewed the low carb crew, I've interviewed the keto, I've interviewed them all, like not them all, but all different philosophies. And you take what you will from each person that speaks. I've interviewed cardiologists, I've interviewed kidney specialists, I've interviewed neurologists, neurosurgeons. These are important topics and discussions to be had when we're witnessing the mental decline of our population with dementia, Alzheimer's, where we're witnessing the rise in autism at a staggering level. You know, if we avoid these things, or we just do not want to know about them. You know, my dear friend Trevor Hendy, who's I've interviewed a couple of times on the podcast, he said to me once, he goes, the thing that will take you out, take you out of your grounding, is the thing that you don't see coming, you know. And we definitely have enough to see at the moment, but if we shun away from it or hide from it, you know, it could be to your detriment. Good to be informed. I believe it's good to be informed. It's good to see what's playing out in the circus, even though it's ridiculous. It still has a ripple effect on our day-to-day lives, whether we accept that or not. And then you get to choose how you interact with that world, with that circus, with other people that you co-inhabit it with. And I'll give you a great example. I mean, for 2 years now, living in Australia, I've never worn a mask. I've walked into any store that I've wanted to. I've walked onto any airplane. I've walked into any airport. It has not stifled my ability to express myself and to go where I want to go and to buy what I want to buy and to live the way I want to live. I have not taken any vaccine for the last 2 years. I still can go anywhere that I want to do. I'm not coming out of the country and back into the country yet, but I'm sure there will be solutions to that coming up. Luckily, I'm in no desire to be able to leave at the moment because I've spent the last 10 or 20 years traveling the world 9 or 10 months out of the year, and it's nice to be home. I accept that as a win for me at the moment, that being home is a beautiful thing that I love. But, you know, there are ways through what is happening in the world if you're willing to express yourself authentically. You know, we just saw yesterday in New Zealand that the High Court judge overruled and found in favour for police and defence force that it's unlawful to mandate vaccines. I mean, that's fucking huge. That's just opened the door for everybody in New Zealand and perhaps everywhere in the world to be able to move forward. But what's it willing to take? That took certain individuals willing to stand up for themselves and willing to go to court and spend money for what they believed in. Yeah, I congratulate them, because they said, that's not my journey. So the thing that I'd ask people is, what are you willing to do to keep expressing yourself the way you wish to express yourself? Are you fearful? Are you scared? Will you lead by example? Not for anybody else, but just for yourself. And only you can answer that. I don't really give a fuck what anybody does in their life, because I do not wish to have control over anybody else. And for people that want to wear a mask and want to get injected by the government, so be it. I'm not going to judge you. I'll still hug you and give you a high five and talk to you and treat you with respect and love, even though part of me is like, you're contributing to this circus, which, we'll just make this circus continue further and further. But if that's where you're at in your journey, then so be it, Deep down, that, I'll just say deep down, the truth. It's definitely an invitation for everybody at the moment to realize who they are and what they're willing to be. And no doubt, if the population doesn't realize that and the narrative continues, it is going to get tough, which is why everything we've spoken about today is I believe vitally important, because if it gets tough and if it gets challenging, which I believe it's going to, I actually don't believe we've actually started this journey. I think that was like the first course of 20 courses that is coming down the pipeline for us. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But looking at how everybody the population was compliant and knowing what the agendas are that's coming, now is a really good time to look after your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Because to stay grounded through the chaos and the turmoil that potentially might be coming would be a really beautiful asset to have and a strength to have while reality unfolds in whichever way it goes. And it could get very, very fucking tough.
I think that's a great place to leave this insightful, amazing conversation. Everything that you have said resonates with Beck and I, and everything that you said is what we want to be able to express to others that want to find out more and learn how to empower themselves, because things are tough and things are going to get tough and we have a choice. And I think we all need to respect each other's choices, because like you said, we're all on our own journey, but we have the power to empower ourselves. And that's what we want others to realize. We're not stuck. We can do something about it. And that's an amazing.
Being informative, being present, everything you've said is a good way of just going forward with what we've got to go through and taking it all on board, because it's very hard at the moment for people not knowing how to navigate the world and their own inner stuff. So thank you so much, Pete. We really appreciate having you on the Integrative Duo podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for the beautiful questions, and thanks for inviting me on, and love you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please go over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review. It will really help support this channel and share this message. By all means, go over to our social media platforms and let us know what you'd like to hear more of. All of our links will be in the show notes and things we've discussed today in the episode. We'll talk to you next week.